The New York Rangers are officially in the Stanley Cup Playoffs. We break down a roller coaster of an overtime win against the Flyers. We wonder if Mika Zibanejad is hitting his stride, and we cover a very simple reason why the Rangers can win the Stanley Cup.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1033 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. So the Rangers coming off of what was obviously a roller coaster, edge of your seat, nail biter of a 6-5 overtime victory against the rival Philadelphia Flyers. I mean, where do we even start with this game? It was scoreless after one period. Heading into overtime, it was tied at 5-5. There were 7 goals scored in the third period. All of a sudden, a game that started as kind of low event hockey and a little bit of a feeling out process between the two teams. Just kind of exploded, odd man rushes both ways and some beautiful goals for each team. And, the defense probably left something to be desired on both sides, but I do think it's encouraging that the Rangers, even though they didn't play their best and there were times in this game where they made some mistakes that proved costly, still think it's good that they continue to find ways to win. You're not going to win every game 6-5 in the playoffs, that is for sure. But yeah, you might get the odd game like that every now and then. It's nice to know that the Rangers can win a high-scoring game even when the defense falters at least a little bit. And the other big news coming out of this game is, of course, very simple fact that the Rangers are the first team in the NHL to clinch a spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They technically clinched the playoffs before their own game ended, because by getting into overtime, that obviously guaranteed the Rangers at least 1 point, and they did that. And then just a couple of minutes after that, I believe it was, there was a situation where the Red Wings lost the Capitals, and all those things put together meant that the Rangers were in the playoffs. But you know what? Whatever. That's not how we're going to remember this. We're going to have selective memories here, and we're going to go with Adam Fox's overtime game winner being the moment that the New York Rangers clinched the playoffs. I mean, for the players, I'm sure they thought that as well. I doubt that any of them were. I mean, they're obviously going to the playoffs anyway, so I doubt any of them were scoreboard watching. For the players, that moment was probably, when they realized, like, yeah, we're in for sure. And, obviously, bigger fish to fry than just getting into the playoffs, but it's an important first step every single season. And this year is no exception. But to try to sum up this game, not an easy thing to do. I think we could probably make this into a 3-parter if we really wanted to. But again, insane third period, 7 goals combined. That obviously sent the game into overtime. In the third period alone, the Rangers got a game-tying goal from Johnny Brodzinski. And he, of course, was in the lineup, we think, because, well, we know that Alex Wennberg was scratched, but we think the reason for that is because we know that his wife is expecting their second child, and it's possible that that might be happening. I haven't seen any update there, so obviously, hopefully everything's okay, and all the best to the Wennberg family. But Wennberg sat out of the lineup. Johnny Brodzinski went in, took advantage of the opportunity, and scored a goal here. Great play by Capo Caco here. The puck is in the corner, and the Flyers have it, and he goes in there, very aggressive, steals the puck away, passes from behind the goal line out in front to Brodzinski. Brodzinski had to really kind of stretch to get the pass, and then just kind of slung it into the net. And I believe that goal, that goal tied the game for the Rangers in the third period. And then after that, we had a go-ahead goal by Lafreniere. Flyers tied it. A go-ahead goal shorthanded by Vincent Trocheck. Flyers tied it. And another go-ahead goal by Lafreniere. Flyers tied it. We go to overtime, and as I mentioned, Adam Fox took care of business there. We might as well go ahead and talk about the overtime period. I mean, it didn't last very long. And as I said, dramatic win for the Rangers. And you get the game winner from Adam Fox. But what have I been saying when it comes to 3v3 overtime for the New York Rangers? There's only one trio that should even be under consideration to start an overtime period, at least for me. in my very humble opinion, and that trio is Vincent Trocheck, Artemi Panarin, Adam Fox. You got Trocheck. I mean, first of all, those are just three awesome players. But Trocheck can win you the faceoff, which he did here. Flyers never got the puck after that happened. Artemi Panarin, I mean, look at the season he's having, and you give him some extra real estate, and, obviously he's going to be able to take advantage of that in a lot of spots. And Adam Fox is an all-worldly defenseman that can get it done on both sides of the ice in such an environment, 3v3. But yeah, I mean, to just go through the whole overtime here, you get the face-off win. Panarin has a shot that deflects wide of the net. Phenomenal play by Panarin here. He goes basically to the other side of the net and into the corner there. He's there battling for the puck and trying to get control of it. He does indeed do that. Short pass to Trocheck. Trocheck wraps the puck around the boards to the other side. Adam Fox is easily able to get to the puck, and he's got no one near him because, again, 3v3, there's so much extra space out there. But then Fox passes up the boards to Trocheck. Trocheck right back to Fox as Fox is moving forward to the net, and then Fox fires a shot off the post and in. And just like that, the Rangers win in overtime. Fox, every time he scores, he sets a new career high. He's up to 15 goals this season. That also, that goal clinched the 800th career win for Peter Laviolette. It also resulted in point number 102 for Artemi Panarin. He had 3 assists in this game and hit 100 points for the first time in his career. And the Panarin line, Lafreniere, Trocheck, and Panarin himself combined for 8 points in this game. They just continue to go to work on a nightly basis, and just another tremendous performance for that trio. Also worth noting that the Rangers now 8-1 in the 5-minute overtime periods. Now, obviously, the playoffs are different because you're going to play 5v5, and that's how it should be. Stanley Cup playoff hockey, continuous overtime, 5v5, to me at least, that's the only way to go. And obviously, 5v5 and 3v3, that's very different, and, the game is just played differently in those two circumstances. But I do think it's good that the Rangers are getting used to winning games in overtime. Now, hopefully they don't have to do that over and over and over again in the playoffs, but any team that wins the Stanley Cup, you got to figure they're going to go to overtime at least a couple of times. And you like to think that you can come up clutch in spots like that, put your best foot forward, and ultimately get a win. And again, I know it's 3v3 and I know it's different from the playoffs, but 8-1 are the Rangers in overtime. So clearly they're playing their best when they need to. And I think that's very impressive and hopefully something that bodes well for the playoffs. And, something else I'll point out about this win here, obviously it wasn't perfect. I mentioned that the defense left a lot to be desired. The Rangers gave up way too many odd man rushes in this game. Flyers scored on at least 1 or 2 of them. They also seem to be having issues getting the puck out of their own zone in a way that we're not used to seeing. There were a lot of Flyer possessions in this game in the Rangers zone that lasted a really long time. They're just cycling the puck and the Rangers can't get control of it. On at least one occasion, it led to the Rangers having to take a penalty. A couple other times where maybe Igor had to make a really nice save to bail them out. Once or twice where the Rangers had to ice the puck. I mean, at a certain point, that's not the ideal way to get the puck out of your zone, but if you're under fire and you're in enough trouble, you do it. And obviously, when you ice the puck, you can't get off the ice. The players on the ice have to stay there. But, I mean, desperate times, if you have to do it, you have to do it. And at least you get a short, break with the linesman having to go get the puck and bring it back and drop it. But, yeah, that really stood out to me in this game, how many sustained offensive zone possessions the Flyers got. And I think part of the reason for that is, I mean, look at the Ranger lineup. They were down 3 of their usual 6 defensemen. No Trouba, no Lindgren, and Erik Gustafsson missing this game as well. So it's nice that the Rangers were able to kind of go with next man up. Brand Scanlin made his NHL debut, so a big congratulations to him. But the good news is that those 3 players, those 3 defensemen, Trouba, Lindgren, Gustafsson, it doesn't sound like any of them are expected to be out for a whole lot longer. For me, and I'm sure this applies to most of you as well, the biggest concern is making sure these guys are ready to go for the playoffs. And as some of you have suggested, I do think maybe it could be a blessing in disguise that these guys are missing a couple of games here, especially Trouba and Lindgren. I don't know how much for Gustafsson, but I mean, Trouba and Lindgren play such a, physical, demanding style of hockey that maybe getting a little bit of a breather here and getting to come back fresh at the very end of the regular season, maybe that could be a good thing for those guys. Sam mentioned during the broadcast that Lindgren was skating at practice on Monday. It would really be something if Lindgren actually made it back before Trouba. Not that it's a race or anything like that, but, obviously when Lindgren went down, it looked bad, and a lot of us were worried that that could be, a significant injury. And it doesn't sound like at this point he's really in any danger of missing any Stanley Cup playoff action. So that's obviously a good thing. And you know what? Cheers to everybody, Ranger fans everywhere. This team is in the playoffs, 100-plus points for the third straight year. And I know that doesn't mean as much as it used to, but still a nice accomplishment. 10 games to spare. The Rangers clinch playoffs with 10 games to spare in the regular season, the first team in the NHL to do so. As I mentioned at the top of the show, much bigger fish to fry for the Rangers than just getting in. But you know what? You got to be in it to win it. And I do think it's cool, just a fun little bonus for us Ranger fans when we look at the standings today and, they put that X next to the teams that have clinched playoffs. Only the Rangers have that X right now. So that's obviously a cool thing. And we'll see how they do the rest of the regular season here. Obviously, there's still a division on the line. There's still playoff seeding on the line. There's still a lot going on here. And then you get the playoffs, and obviously there's no substitute for Stanley Cup playoff hockey. That's why a lot of us are fans. I mean, that's when the real season begins, and that's when the fun really starts. So we'll look forward to that as well. I'm going to keep everything rolling in just a second here. I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about Mika Zibanejad. I think this is one of the best games he's played in a long time. So we'll get to that. Bunch of other stuff as well, including a reason why the Rangers can win the Stanley Cup. But first, let's go ahead and let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. All right. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn on the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel's app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here. I want to shift our attention to Mika Zibanejad. I thought he had himself a heck of a game here. Obviously, he got on the score sheet as many Rangers did, but just playing with a lot of confidence. Seemed to just have a little bit more jump to his game in this one than we've seen maybe at times this season. Just felt like it was one of those old school Mika Zibanejad games where he's doing a little bit of everything and he's all over the ice. I want to go ahead and just kind of break down the contributions that he made offensively, and we'll go ahead and do that right now. We can start with the goal that he scored. Obviously, Rangers are on the power play when this happened, and you've got Artemi Panarin taking a long shot. The save is made, and a great play by Panarin here. This kind of goes in line with what I was talking about earlier, where Panarin is just busting his tail all over the ice. He laid out to prevent a clear, and that was a great play there. It looked like the puck was definitely going to go out of the zone, but then Rangers keep cycling the puck. Panarin gets it to Mika. Mika's in his spot. Like, as this pass is going from Panarin to Mika, you think he's going to wind back and blast and go for that one-timer that we know can be lethal. But honestly, I don't know that Mika's scored as many one-timer goals this season as we thought that he probably would coming into the season. There's been a few here and there, but I just think you expect him to convert on those a little bit more often than he has. So it was kind of like refreshing to see him try something different here, because the puck's going to him. He can wind back and just blast away with that one-timer if that's what he wants to do. But instead, he receives the pass, stick handles very briefly, and then rips a wrist shot and scores. And again, as much fun as it is to see him score on those one-timers, this was kind of cool to see him try something a little bit different here. Good to work on these things, obviously, right before the playoffs start. And good to just kind of let the opposing team, the opposing penalty kill, know that he's not a one-trick pony, and he's got some other, tricks up his sleeve as well. It's not always going to be the Rangers trying to force feed him one-timers on the power play. But it was great to see him score here, and this also got the Rangers back into the game. I should also mention his BFF Kreider was providing a screen on this play, which certainly seemed to help, but that cut the Flyer lead down to 2-1 with 4:32 to go in the second period. And you say that out loud and you realize the Rangers went on to score 6 goals in this game. They did it in about, 24, 25 minutes of hockey, 6 goals in that time. That tells you just how lethal they can be when they've got everything working. But that obviously got the Rangers back into the game. It also allowed Panarin to reach the 100-point plateau, and he was on to having himself a heck of a night as well. Mika also ended up with what I would like to call an unofficial assist in this game. You had Lafreniere taking a shot. This gave the Rangers a 3-2 lead. Lafreniere taking a shot from the center of the ice and doesn't get through. The puck kind of goes behind the net, but Mika's, kind of engaged one-on-one with a Flyer defender, and Mika goes to get the puck and is able to do so. He's able to kind of get off of his guy, get to the puck, move it back in front. The puck pops up into the air, and it's kind of trickling there in the crease and getting dangerously close to the goal line if you're the Flyers. The Flyers are able to kind of sweep it away briefly, but Lafreniere's right there, and he backhands the puck into the net. 3-2 in favor of the Rangers at that time early in the third period. So not an official assist for Mika because, the Flyer defender was able to, sort of move the puck out of the crease. But again, he didn't get it very far. Lafreniere was right there to put it back into the net. But a really nice play by Mika Zibanejad, making that happen in that situation. And then we talked about, Mika coming through on the power play with a goal. He got this unofficial assist while the teams were skating 5-a-side. And he also gets just an awesome shorthanded assist in a big spot in the game, gave the Rangers a 4-3 lead with about 10 minutes to go. And obviously there were more goals on the way after this, but for the time, it looked like it might be the game winner. But bottom line, the Rangers, again, they're shorthanded. Flyers are all over them. And you eventually have Mika Zibanejad and Vincent Trocheck, they're on the ice together. I believe it was Trocheck who disrupted the pass, but Mika saw where the puck was going. It kind of, careened to the other side of the rink along the boards there near the Ranger blue line, and Mika just exploded over there to get it all in one motion, picked up the puck, and then very quickly, turned to his right and just, flew down the ice, 2-on-1 rush for the Rangers. And Mika's going up the left side. He's kind of running out of room, and he's also got the Flyer defender going down to block a potential pass or even a shot. And Mika's able to kind of play the puck forward and sweep a pass around the Flyer defender all the way over to Vincent Trocheck. You cannot make a more perfect pass on this. Right on the tape, Trocheck is there. All he has to do is basically just let the puck bounce off his stick and into the net, and that's exactly what he did. Just a great play by Mika Zibanejad there. And something else that Mika was doing in this game, he was putting in work on the penalty kill. I know the Flyers ended up scoring 1 power play goal, and they were 1 for 3 on the night. That power play goal they scored, though, I don't know that you can even... I guess, that the PK always bears some responsibility, but there was some unreal passing by the Flyers on that goal. But the other two, very good kills for the Rangers. Mika was out there for a lot of that. He got 2 minutes and 34 seconds on the penalty kill on the night. That was the second most among Ranger forwards, only to Barclay Goodrow. And so, Mika, again, being a key member of that Ranger penalty kill unit, and a good job by the PK in general, because obviously, again, we mentioned not having the 3 defensemen. Adam Fox took a penalty in this game too. So think about that. The Rangers were in a situation, I think it was the first power play that the Flyers got, where they didn't have 4 of their best 6 defensemen available to kill a penalty because Adam Fox is in the penalty box and Trouba, Lindgren, and Gustafsson were not in the lineup. And I know Gustafsson doesn't play the PK that much, but you get the idea. They obviously, their options were limited, and I think overall the Ranger PK did a nice job on this night. And obviously Mika Zibanejad, a big part of, a very successful unit thus far this season for the Rangers. So, we hear about Mika March, right? How every time the calendar turns to March, Mika Zibanejad tends to go off and have a big month. Maybe we're seeing some of that right now, but he seems like he's playing with a lot of confidence and just a lot more jump in his game. And obviously, look, we need Mika Zibanejad at his best. Cliche or not, you need your best players to be your best players in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And, Mika and Kreider, I know people get on them from time to time. I don't think they've been nearly as bad this year as some people would have you believe, but has it been their best season? Nope. I wouldn't say it's been either of their best seasons either. So, and then that's actually a topic we're going to dive into a little bit deeper in just a second here. We're actually going to look at some reasons why it's entirely possible. One very specific reason, very simple reason as well, why the Rangers can win the Stanley Cup this season. And we will get to that in just a second. First, though, we definitely would like to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Okay, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here. I want to kind of wrap up today's episode by talking a couple of things here, but one of the biggest things is going to be why I think the Rangers are scary in the playoffs. And when I say that, I mean that in a good way, why they're scary for the rest of the league. And I kind of touched on it a little bit when we were talking about Mika Zibanejad just a minute ago. But I want everybody to consider, where the Rangers are and how they got here. So again, best record in the NHL, inside track to the President's Trophy. We talked in our last episode about the idea of the President's Trophy being cursed. If anybody wants to go back and hear my thoughts on that and hear some stats to back up the reasons why or why not it might be cursed. However, right now, I just want to point out the fact that, again, best record in the NHL, only team as of now to clinch, a playoff spot. And obviously other teams are going to get in soon. But the Rangers, despite, having such an awesome record and the inside track to the President's Trophy, the Rangers have multiple high-profile, big-name, in many cases, very well-paid players who I do not think are having their best season. You can throw, the big three that kind of come to mind for me when you look at the whole track record of what these three players have done for the entire season are Igor Shesterkin, Mika Zibanejad, and Chris Kreider. And again, I cannot emphasize this enough. I'm not saying that any of them are bad, that any of them are liabilities, that none of them have done anything to help the Rangers this season. I don't think anything could be further from the truth. But I think all three of them, and most of the stats would back this up. Kreider might end up with, a new career high in points, but most of the stats would back up that these three, partially due to their own lofty standards that they've set for themselves, but these three have not had the best season of their careers. It feels like them and a couple other guys too, maybe have not played as well as they're fully capable of, to throw out another name. I think maybe you throw Kakko in there. Kakko's played well recently, and it was awesome to see him make that play and set up Brodzinski as that line kind of reunited, those two and Kakko all back together. But there are guys on this team who it feels like, even despite the fact that the Rangers have such an awesome record and they've beaten so many good teams and they're the first team into the playoffs, it feels like there's multiple guys that have not played their absolute best. And it feels like, kind of going hand in hand with that, the Rangers collectively, as good as they've been, it feels like there's like that other little level that they can still kind of get to. Maybe there's an extra, 10 to 20% that they can get to, as we go on that stretch here and into the playoffs. Think about everything they've done. I just mentioned a whole bunch of stuff. They went 11-1 in February. They've had, dramatic wins. They've beaten bona fide Stanley Cup contenders. They've taken care of the Bruins all season, just as one example. It feels like, again, they've done all this in spite of the fact that they haven't quite played their absolute total max powers best, and that sounds crazy for a team that, again, best record in the NHL, but I do think that's the case. I do think there's just that one extra little level that they can get to, and if they get to that level, going into the playoffs and in the playoffs themselves, look out, man. This team is dangerous, and everything I just said, nothing is guaranteed. Obviously, the playoffs are a battle, and anything can happen. You never know how far your team's going to go or how quick they could be out of it. But man, if they played well this season. And again, I still think there's just that little extra something, that little extra level they can still get to as we head down the stretch here and ultimately into the playoffs. One other thing I want to mention here, talk about this, quickly here at the end of the episode. Brandon Scanlin making his NHL debut for the New York Rangers, and 24 years old. He's been around the team lately. He's been the healthy scratch for a while before, Gustafsson ended up sitting out this game with an injury. He's said to be day to day as Gustafsson. But yeah, Scanlin's 6'4", 214 pounds. He's in his third season with the Hartford Wolfpack. He's played in 57 games for them this year, 8 goals, 8 assists, also a +3. And as far as his collegiate background, he spent 3 seasons at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, had 11 goals and 51 assists in 98 games. And ideally, you wouldn't be dealing with these kinds of injuries. I mentioned earlier, maybe it's a blessing in disguise of sorts for Lindgren and or Trouba. But I will say, I don't think it's the worst thing that Brandon Scanlin gets a game here. Maybe he's back out there in the next game. I'm not sure if, anybody's going to be returning for that one as far as the 3 injured Ranger defensemen are concerned. But at least Scanlin gets a taste of NHL hockey here. He gets to play with the Rangers. He gets to be around his teammates and even play in a, heated division rival matchup game here. And, the Stanley Cup playoffs, look, in a perfect world, and this is nothing against Scanlin, but in a perfect world, Scanlin doesn't dress for a single game in the playoffs, because if he does, you got to figure the Rangers are dealing with some injuries, and obviously you don't want that when it comes to the postseason. But again, I don't think it's the worst thing. If the Rangers, knock on wood, but if the injuries do start to pile up a little bit to the Ranger defenseman, well, at least Brandon Scanlin got a game under his belt with his Ranger teammates here and did okay. I thought he was all right in this game. Didn't really stand out a whole lot. But again, that's not the worst thing for a 6th defenseman when that is the case. Made a couple of plays early in this game and did a really nice job. There was a play, I think, in the first period where he did a really nice job just kind of hanging with Frost. Frost had the puck along the boards and, Scanlin stayed with him all the way. But again, not such a bad thing that he ended up, getting to skate in at least one game with the Rangers here. Again, you don't want him playing in the playoffs because that indicates injuries. But if he has to, at least he has some experience with the Rangers. He ended up with a bloody nose in this game as well. And kind of an interesting situation because the Rangers had iced the puck, but because he was bleeding, he was allowed to leave the ice. You don't see that every day. But overall, a decent game for Scanlin. But I think more importantly, just the fact that he got at least one NHL game under his belt, got at least one experience playing a game alongside his Ranger teammates under his belt. And again, an insurance policy, kind of a break glass in case of emergency type player heading into the playoffs is Brandon Scanlin. One other thing that I want to mention here, though, is Matthew Robertson. Has anyone seen Matthew Robertson? Does anyone know where he is or what's happening? I mean, I'm joking, obviously. He's with the Hartford Wolfpack. We know that. But Brandon Scanlin, the way things stand right now, I mean, he got into the lineup here and he did so with 3 normal Ranger defensemen out of the lineup, which basically means that Brandon Scanlin is the number 9 defenseman on the Rangers. And Matthew Robertson is somebody that not that long ago was a pretty heralded, draft pick for the Rangers, and he's now 23 years old. Is he even under any consideration by the Rangers to be caught up in situations like this? I'm kind of getting to the point where, how many Ranger defensemen, I don't want to know the answer to this question, but how many Ranger defensemen would have to get hurt or be out of the lineup for one reason or another before Robertson is even considered to be promoted and to be put into the lineup? I don't think we want to know the answer to that question. It's just surprising because it wasn't that long ago where he was kind of, the prospect defenseman for the Rangers. If Sam and Joe even said his name once during a broadcast this season, and I'm not blaming them for that. I'm not mad at them for that, but I think it just goes to show that, his star is really kind of seemingly fallen. And I just don't even know where he stands with do they still see him as somebody who could eventually make an impact for the Rangers? Could at least be a third pair kind of defenseman? I'm not really sure. Again, it's just kind of bizarre how many times over the past 2 seasons here, we've seen somebody promoted from the AHL and they get into the lineup. Who was the defenseman earlier this season too that got into one game for the Rangers and got into a fight against Ottawa? I'm drawing a blank on his name, but bottom line, we saw Ben Harper last year for a bunch of games. It just feels like they're not going to call up Robertson. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the future holds for him. It's been a long time since we've heard really any kind of an update on Robertson, but I guess obviously we'll keep tabs on him as we do every player on the New York Rangers. But I just thought I would throw that out there. Also, unsung hero for this game. You know what? We're going to go with the good people of the Garden of Dreams Foundation. It was Garden of Dreams fundraiser night at Madison Square Garden, which is always awesome. And the way it works is you can donate a minimum of $100, and doing so makes you eligible for one of 16 prizes that they're giving away. You can donate any amount of money, but $100 gets you eligible for those prizes. And you can go to msgnetworks.com to do that. The prizes, they're pretty much what you would expect. There's tickets available for the game against the Islanders a little bit later this season in April. There's tickets for the 2024-25 home opener. Personalized video from Sam and Joe, that's a prize that's given out. And then you get the normal things like autographed jerseys from players, autographed sticks from players and whatnot. But obviously it's just a wonderful foundation. And obviously those people do a ton of great work, and just great to see, Ranger fans giving to a wonderful cause there. So figure we could pretty much call it there. Just a couple of final notes here. Rangers are now 3-0 against the Flyers this year. They play them one more time in the regular season on April 11th, and that will be the third to last game of the regular season for the Rangers. Something else that I want to mention is that Alexis Lafreniere scored twice in this game, and it's not even a big deal. I mean, if this had happened any other season that he was with the Rangers, or if this had even happened in October or November this year, it probably would have been the first thing that I talked about in this episode. But you know what? We're more than 30 minutes into the episode, and I'm just now mentioning it. I mentioned very quickly a couple of Rangers that scored goals, but we didn't talk about it in any great detail. And I think that just goes to show how far he's come and what a great player he's become and what an important player he's become for this Ranger fan. Is like he scores 2 goals, and it's not even that big of a deal. We just come to expect it out of him. It's not in any way surprising. I mean, no player is going to go out there and score twice in every single game, but when he does do that, you're not at all surprised by it. So that's just been awesome to see. It's been awesome to see Alexis Lafreniere, reach that next level, and obviously going to be a very important player for the Rangers down the stretch and into the playoffs. And can't wait to see, what he can do and what this entire Ranger team can do when the playoffs do indeed roll around. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.